Thanks everyone for taking the time to join. I see some people are still joining in, but we're going to go ahead and get started. This copy is going to be recorded and we'll share it with the attendees after the webinar. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to some of you. I see some folks are from Europe. My name is Keenan. I'm part of the sales team here at Densify. And in today's webinar, we're doing things a little differently here. I have actually a guest from a company that we do a lot of work with in providing insights. It's called AMD, so most of you are familiar with the name. I'm joined here by Lewis Carroll, Director of Cloud Operations. Hey, Lewis.
Hello.
So again, I'm part of the sales team here from Densify. Lewis, Director of Cloud Solution Architect at AMD. This is more of a casual discussions of Lewis talking to us of what AMD's been up to from latest offerings and products, specifically on AWS. They do a lot in the public cloud. We decided to narrow that discussions on AWS today. If there's an appetite for other cloud providers, Azure, GCP, feel free to let us know. I'll be more than happy to set up another session similar to this one here. I'll hand it over to Lewis. Lewis, if you can provide a brief introduction to the audience about yourselves and what your day-to-day look like, and just a brief update about AMD offering when it comes to their chipset capabilities and functionalities on AWS. I know there's been a lot in the news and a lot of announcements and product offering coming online, so it would be nice to get that understanding. And then last 5 minutes, I'll basically there's an offer on the table to see if how you can take advantage of that, determine what improvement performance can achieve and cost reductions, and this is where Densify can help out. Lewis, over to you.
Thanks, Keenan. So as Keenan mentioned, I run our Cloud Solutions Architects team. We work directly with end customers, with AWS account teams, builders, and sellers to address any customer questions about performance, compatibility, how customers can take advantage of the AMD offerings on AWS. And we also spend a lot of our time making customers aware of these offerings. EC2 is one of many products that AWS offers, and the AMD instances are just a part of EC2. So we're making sure that customers are aware of our piece of the larger puzzle. Now, as Keenan mentioned, please post questions in the chat. We will answer them at the end. We do plan on saving a lot of time for questions, so so don't be shy. Also, throughout the slides, you'll see an email on the bottom left of this slide, for example, where you can send an email to the dedicated AWS team at AMD, and we'll get back to you. There's also a PDF in the document, there's a PDF in the handout section on the GoToWebinar panel where you'll see all of the links that are in this slide set, plus a few additional useful links. So as Keenan mentioned, today we're going to talk really briefly about the AMD offerings in Elastic Compute Cloud, or EC2. I'm going to spend most of my time focusing on our newest offering, and then Keenan's going to wrap up with how Densify can help you take advantage of the offerings that we have, how you can get the most performance and capacity for your budget. I think it's worth pointing out that Densify and AMD have been partnered for a while now with a common goal of helping customers better manage the cloud budget. Densify uses data-driven analytics, AI, a recommendation engine. I forget the name. Sorry, Keenan, you'll have to remind us what the name of your engine is. But to analyze a workload and make a recommendation for the optimal instance on which to run that workload. And this is based on captured data, how the workload utilizes the resources on the instance, like CPU and memory. It's not just oh, the workload's named this, and so it should run on that. It's an intelligent analytics, data-driven approach. It's very powerful. So with that in mind, and with the training that we provide Densify's tools, you should think of it this way, that AMD and Densify are working together to ensure that these recommendations maintain the performance you need while minimizing the effort and risk of putting those recommendations into action. What we've seen is, on average, customers who take advantage of the Densify capabilities and follow the recommendations that the engine produces, they save upwards of 40% within the first 6 months of use. And that right there, that 40% savings on your cloud budget, is money you can use for more capacity, more performance, more projects, or whatever you want. And lastly, we'll talk about it more at the end, but for businesses that qualify, AMD will sponsor the trial with Densify, so there's no cost to the customer, just the investment of time and resources to make the trial worthwhile. But AMD will cover the cost of this for businesses that qualify. Keenan, you jump ahead.
Yep.
So here's a quick rundown of the AMD-based EC2 offerings. Now, I want to point out that everything AMD is x86 here, so we're not talking about any software compatibility issues or needs to recompile or move software over to a new ISA. It's x86, it's just going to work. So the three offerings, the general purpose M5A, the burstable T3A, memory optimized R5A, I want to point out these are all based on our first generation EPYC processor that we introduced about 2 years ago into AWS. Well, we introduced about 2 years ago. It's been in AWS about 18 months. These instances, you should generalize them thinking they offer very good performance at a very good cost savings. Now, more exciting for me, the EC2 team has also just released a compute optimized C5A family based on the second generation EPYC, what we call Rome processor. C5A is really exciting for me and for my colleagues because of the performance that we can offer and the scale that we offer. Once it becomes available on AWS, if you have a need for like large scale container hosting or HPC, for example, the C5A Metal will be the largest and most cost-effective general purpose compute instance that you can get on AWS. Now, all of the AMD families are 10% lower cost than the Intel families in the same region. So for example, M5A.X large is 10% lower cost than M5.X large, et cetera. Now, interestingly, if you can host a workload in Mumbai, or if you have DevOps or CI/CD workloads that you can run anywhere, if you can run something in the Mumbai region, AWS has given you a massive 45% cost savings on the AMD families compared to the Intel families. So check out Mumbai if you can use it, take advantage of that massive cost savings. And that even applies on C5, where you get a performance advantage on top of that massive cost saving. Go ahead, Keenan. So let's talk about when to choose the AMD instances. This is definitely the most common question we get from builders, sellers, and from customers. And the very simple short answer is that every workload will run just fine. Now, the reality is nothing's ever simple. So there are questions we need to ask for first generation instances. And I like to be a straight shooter. Not every workload is going to be the best fit for the first generation products. These are the M5A, the R5A, and the T3A. The questions that the builders need to understand are around CPU utilization, the sensitivity of the workload to clock speed, and how the performance of the instance, whether it's query response time or query latency or whatever, how the performance of that workload factors into the customer's overall cloud stack. A workload that's very sensitive to clock frequency, or a stack that's very sensitive to the latency or the database response, or if the instance has very high CPU utilization, 70% plus, that may not be the best fit for an M5A or an R5A. However, we see far more workloads where the CPU utilization is hovering in the 20, 30, maybe even 40% range. Those are really good targets for these first gen products, where our performance will still be plenty good enough and you get the 10% cost savings. But more importantly, this whole analysis is a big part of the Densify predictive analytics capability, and capturing and understanding how that workload resource usage varies over time is also a big part of it. And that's one of the real values that Densify adds into this picture. Now for C5A, any workload is a good fit. And here I don't even have to joke about it. C5A gives you very high boost speeds, a huge amount of cache on the chip, a huge amount of memory bandwidth. And I'll show you a couple examples today where you'll see that C5A delivers outstanding performance on all workloads with a cost savings. Go ahead, Keenan.
Sure.
Here's my one and only eye chart. This is all data that's readily available on the AWS website. This is just showing the C5 and C5A side by side. There are a couple things I do want to note, which is why I jammed this chart in here. First of all, for workloads that can benefit from or that need local storage, the C5AD generally offers, that's at the bottom of this chart here, the C5AD generally offers more NVMe capacity than the same size C5D. So if you or your customer has selected a C5D instance to get a certain amount of local storage, the AMD option that has 150% more capacity might allow you to drop down one instance size and save 30–40% or more, matching the local storage capability that you need. Second, you'll see on this chart there are 4 highlighted rows. These are the only 4 cases so far across all of the AMD EC2 offerings where there's not an exact AMD match for an existing instance. So for example, where there's a C5.9x large, there isn't a C5a.9x large. There's a .8x large. But I highlighted these because they offer some very interesting price performance opportunities. If you jump to the right, you'll see the price advantage, and we'll talk now about the performance. Go ahead, Keenan. So the first example I want to show is with real-time video encoding. This could be part of a studio's production pipeline. This could be advertising, it doesn't matter what you're doing. But here we're comparing the performance of C580.8x large to the closest comparable x86 instance. You can see that with a 20% cost savings and slightly better performance, this is a no-brainer win for customers using C5 for video processing. Now, more importantly, if you look at the bottom of the 2 comparisons, you'll see that if you're doing live broadcast work with raw footage into 4K, C5AD 8X large can keep up with real time. So the closest comparable instance just barely falls behind real time, and this is high quality settings. We're not dialing down the encode quality to meet a certain level of performance. This is high quality. What this means is if your instance can't keep up, you need to hit real time, you've got to step up to a larger instance, and that jump up is 67% more expensive than the C5AD. So that's a huge win for customers here.
So Louis, just on some of the attendees probably will be asking similar to the question I'm about to ask. The exact comparison here, this looks like a C5D 9X large?
Yeah, that's the one.
Okay,
yep.
Sounds familiar. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. Next slide. So another performance comparison for you, again, to the closest comparable x86 instance. This time it's not the NVMe local storage option. Here we're using more of a general purpose set of workloads. This is the Phoronix test suite. These results were published by Phoronix themselves. So each bar in this represents a subtest in the test suite. The instance savings is about 20%. And the way to read this chart is that the red line represents performance per dollar equivalency. So as you look across, you'll see that for every single subtest in the test suite, we are more cost effective. And in many cases, when you look at, like at the far right, where we're 2.5 times higher performance per dollar, that's an absolute win as well as a win on dollars performance per dollars. So, again, we're very excited about the C5A performance. Go ahead to the next slide, please. Now, one thing to draw everyone's attention to, AMD has a cloud solutions engineering team. These are dedicated engineers who spend their days profiling common workloads, Nginx, Redis, SQL Server, a host of other workloads. We do this work for customers. We do this work for the EC2 team at AWS. And you'll see the URL here. We publish all of the briefs that they're doing at this URL. We are happy to take input from customers if you need us to do a characterization of a workload. We look at scale up studies versus scale out studies. There's a lot of different things that this team can do. So for the AWS folks out there, please feel free to lean on this team to help you out. For customers out there, we'd be happy to do some work directly for you. Go ahead to the next slide, Keenan. So next I want to talk about minimizing risk, and this comes in the form of compatibility. So we're talking today about optimizing your spend, but optimization is it sounds great, but if it requires a big investment of your resources to mitigate that risk, suddenly it's not so good. The AMD instances are all 64-bit x86. Now, if you think back, it was actually AMD who invented the 64-bit x86 instruction set. That's why it's called AMD 64 in the Linux kernel still, and lots of other places. And that's what you're using today. Everything running in the cloud today is 64-bit AMD 64. So that's what you're using today. Your code's just going to work. Compatibility is almost assured. The second part of this, our friends at AWS, the engineering guys in particular, have gone to great lengths to ensure seamless compatibility between the instances, the AMD and the Intel instances, seamless interoperability of all of the various AWS services that you might want to run on top of EC2. They're using the same Nitro virtualization hardware and platform for both systems. So, these things work exactly the same. I've seen many cases of customers who will take an existing AMI and bring it up on an AMD instance and test it out and have it running in less than 5 minutes of invested time. Obviously, there's more time invested to evaluate it, but it really is that easy to get your test drive going. Go ahead, Keenan. And the last thing I want to cover is availability. If you look at this chart here, it shows you, where we have AMD host hardware installed. I've highlighted the North America and GovCloud regions. We generally have plenty of capacity in the most popular regions, although keep in mind C5A is still new, so AWS is still rolling that out. Now, what's important is if your customer has any specific availability zone needs, whether it's a zone where we don't have capacity installed yet, or a region where we don't have all 3 or all 4 or all 5 data centers installed, for redundancy purposes, or you need to plan for a large capacity requirement, whatever the case may be, please make your AWS account team aware. You can make the AMD team at AMD@AWS.com. I got that wrong. That should be AWS@AMD.com. I just noticed that. Sorry about that. But the EC2 capacity planning team is very good at responding to these customer requests and making sure that customer needs are covered. Once again, that email should be AWS@AMD.com. I apologize for that. Keenan, you can go ahead. Thanks. So in summary, kind of a wrap up for the day, we have very high performance, low cost options, x86 options for M5, R5, T3, and C5. So these are the vast majority of the core EC2 platforms. More specifically, C5A gives you a huge opportunity for cost savings, better cloud efficiency with the same or better performance at up to a 45% cost savings in Mumbai, 10% everywhere else. The instances are readily available. They're highly compatible. It's very low risk, very easy to use. We're asking you to please give us a test drive. And with this, I'll hand it over to Keenan to help talk about how they can help you take advantage of these cost savings.
Thank you, Louis, for the information. So you're probably wondering where Densify fits in this here. Our engine will simply provide you all these detailed insights and analytics within your infrastructure and the overall potential of both savings and performance when it comes to leveraging, in this specific case, AMD chipsets on AWS. Densify has been around for well over 20 years now, and we specialize in public cloud optimization, container optimizations, along with virtual infrastructure. Obviously, our talk track for today is focusing on the public cloud, specifically on the AWS infrastructure, in regards to providing you details on what the resource usage is, what your application is doing on the cloud, and providing the exact precise matching from a right sizing approach in regards to that this application will be best suited on a C5A versus the existing instance that you currently have available. Understanding the optimization challenge. A lot of clouds, a lot of native tools are out there provide great capabilities in what we call intelligent procurement, giving you the ability of reserving capacity, giving you the ability of initiating saving plans and committed use, billing analysis, chargeback reports, showback reports, and the like. Where Densify fits in is working with the application itself, providing you the visibility when it comes to capacity optimizations, workload optimization, understanding how much CPU this application is utilizing, what's your memory utilizations, disk IO, network IO, along with among a number of other key performance indicators. And this is basically the information that Densify's engine utilizes to come up with those recommendations, which gives us the ability to provide such recommendations when it comes to the number of AMD chipsets that you can leverage within your infrastructure and vice versa. How it works, very high level, it's machine learning. It's a patented technologies. We feed information to this engine, and then it spits out recommendations for us. Let's see if there's an interest in having analyzed your infrastructure. It's a dedicated API, it's the read-only. We connect to the infrastructure and we obtain what we call application demand patterns. Things like your CPU utilizations, memory, disk IO, storage, network, and the like. We also have a very thorough understanding of the infrastructure that you're utilizing within the actual cloud provider to run those applications on. We have performance benchmarks, we use spec.org, other technical benchmarks that we incorporate into the engine itself. We also allow you to add tags and attributes in order to identify those workloads properly. Billing data, if you like, we can certainly ingest your billing data, and that's basically the FinOps side of the business, where we provide visibility, anomaly detections, billing insights, all sorts of different financial reports that your IT finance cares about. And last but not least, policy. This whole process is governed by policies. You dictate the level of policies that you want to imply on the engine. The engine will adhere to those policies whenever we're coming up with those right-sizing recommendations. This is all the science that takes place behind the scene. The outcome is fairly simple. You'll have recommendations when it comes to your cloud resource optimizations. You might have an application sitting in a specific instance, like an M4 large, but you might be better off with an R5A or a C5A or a T3A, for example. And then we'll show you why. It's not a black box. We're providing all these details on why we're coming up with these recommendations. Placement optimization, this is mainly for container and on-prem infrastructure. Think of it as playing a very complex game of Tetris, where we align all the applications together to share a pool of resources. Migration optimizations, what if scenarios, you want to take a handful of VMs and put them on AWS, what that would look like, how much it will cost me, what type of instance and what type of catalog I need to assign to these resources. Densify will provide you a step-by-step guide on the steps it requires, so you're not overspending as soon as those workloads will hit the cloud. And last but not least, financial optimizations. Anything from your anomaly detection, bill utilizations, providing candidacy for saving plans or RI plans and the like. We can deliver these answers in numerous of different ways. A lot of our customers leverage reports, dashboards, integrate with ticketing system for digital approval, or sign up into a Slack channel or Microsoft Teams for the applications that they care about, and Densify will ping them whenever there's something that they should be aware of pertaining to their specific application. We also leverage automation, which is our key value to success. This whole thing is pointless if there's recommendations that's saving you money that's sitting in someone's inbox and nobody is acting on. Through automation, as soon as we obtain digital approval, we can work with numerous automation tools, CloudFormation, Cloud Terraform, Ansible, orchestration engines, dedicated APIs to ensure that once this recommendation is approved, we can go ahead and make those changes. This is what it looks like. This is a fairly basic scenario where Densify is analyzing 6 instances with a savings of about 160 a month. And then all the different types of the actual savings. You got modernized savings, you got downsized savings. Where we excel is what we call the downsize optimal family or the upsize optimal family, meaning that you have an application or a workload sitting on a category within AWS. We're asking you to downsize that, but put it on a completely different family, maybe from an M series to an R or a T, because we're proving that that will perform better for the application. Taking a look at a specific example here, we're upsizing recommendations. You have a workload sitting on an R4, 2 extra large, and we're providing recommendations to go to an M5A 4 extra large. Again, going back to the value that we provide, it's not a black box. We're literally showing this specific example why we're coming up with that recommendation. In this case here, we're showing you your CPU utilizations on a predicted day in the existing instance and what that CPU utilizations will be in the recommended instance if you act on that recommendations. There is also what we call an effort detail page, a step-by-step in details the effort it requires for someone to implement those changes. About 90–95% of those recommendations can be fully automatable. So we're still providing those details in regards to what it's going to take, medium, small, low effort, in regards to get those implemented. We also keep an eye on anything that's under an RI or a saving plans. It's an RI or saving plans aware. So we're telling you that these specific workloads have nothing to do with an RI plans, meaning an individual can actually go ahead and implement those for immediate value realizations, which is literally a cost savings that's going to be reflected on your next month cloud bill. Last but not least, from an AMD perspective and the partnership, our trials is about 2 weeks. With an AMD funding those, you'll have a 30-day trial, fully vetting the Densify solution, getting insights such as this. This is an actual customer example, a financial institution based out of the US that they've connected about 864 EC2 instances with an average spend of 151,000. within 24 hours of connecting Densify, taking advantage of such an offer, you'll get what we call a detailed report from a saving perspective, and then you can set it through the policies. Absolutely, there's not going to be any degradation in performance. Similar to this one, 12 EC2s are an ideal candidate for an M5A 2 extra large. 432 EC2 instances that they currently have will be a perfect match for an R5 large, and so on. We'll show you the exact current spend on these instances, and then the AMD counterpart, along with the actual savings. Long story short, it took this company 10 minutes through automation to transfer all these 864 instances to the recommended instances here with a saving of close to about $73,000 a month. We're providing you with the level of effort along with where the actual saving comes in. And as you notice, it's all downsize optimal family. So aside from the list price discounts, what Densify does, it optimizes and right-sizes that existing workload, matching it against millions of different permutations and combinations to find the precise match, which is the saving that yields anywhere between 40, average of 42% savings. With that, I want to conclude this webinar and open it up to questions. Last food for thought is any information you'd like to have, I can direct you to amd.com/densify. There's a number of data sheets there, number of use cases, and further informations with a form that you can fill up of taking advantage of such an offer, meaning AMD will fund a full-blown 30-day trial of Densify services where you can realize the value within 48 hours, getting a report of all the potential savings and performance improvement. Now, the last few minutes, I want to take up a couple of questions. Louis, there's a question directed for you here. I just want to make sure I can get it out there. Is it the same offer applicable for other public cloud infrastructure in Azure and GCP? From a Densify side, yes, we analyze Azure and GCP. I just want to see what the breadth of applications available and instances in the other cloud. Can you just quickly shed some light on that?
I can't, Terry. Excuse me. My guy running the partner didn't give me any insight into that. I can't see why not. Our partnership here is with Densify. We're just choosing to talk about AWS today, but we can do the same things with Densify that we do on all the other clouds.
Exactly. And one other question, just want to be respectful of everyone's time, saying what's the level of effort to get something like that started? Well, aside from filling up a form available at amd.com/densify, we'll get connected and we do what we call a set. Obviously, we will understand each other's use cases and qualify. But from a trial perspective, it's a 30-minute connection. It's an API, dedicated APIs that Densify will provide. Or you can set up an IAM role, a read-only access to CloudWatch. All this data that we're analyzing coming in from CloudWatch. If there is multiple accounts, similar to what we do with large infrastructure customers, we do have CloudFormations and Terraform script that you can deploy into the infrastructure, and then we'll get all the audits on a nightly basis, and then within 24 hours, you have access to a dedicated instance that you can start seeing reports such as the one that I showed, what we call the candidacy report, and other recommendation opportunities that Densify provide as part of our day-to-day service. With that, I want to thank everyone for taking the time to join this webinar. This webinar is being recorded. A copy of the recording will be available within the next 24 to 48 hours in your inbox. If there's any questions, you can reach us at amd.com/densify or aws@amd.com. That's the right email address, Louis, right?
That's the right one. Yeah. Only missed on 2 slides. I went back and looked.
And we'll be more than happy to provide additional details. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, you guys.
Thanks for your time, Louis. Appreciate it.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.